Go.
All right, well, hello everyone. Welcome to this Tuesday's tasting. Thanks for joining us. This is Elizabeth and Jeff Beaudre, the owners of Tipple's Brews and Wine. And this Tuesday, we're going to be enjoying the Chablisienne Petit Chablis, a nice Chardonnay from the Chablis region of France. Would go ahead and pull up the slide for me.
There you go.
Thank you very much. A recent Wilfred Wong wine rating of 90 points. We will talk about the whole thing, what the points mean later on. An excellent vintage wine, consistent year to year, and something that I think we'll all enjoy a lot. So if you haven't already opened up your bottle, it's that time to pop that bottle open and pour a glass for yourself. Yes, please.
Okay.
There you go. You're welcome. So this is a white wine. So the ideal temperature is going to be around 50 degrees. That 32 to 34 degrees from your refrigerator will hold back some of the flavors a little bit as you begin drinking it. But even if it is that cold, worry not. It will warm up while we're talking, and it will still begin to express the aromas and flavors that.
I'm just thinking, I hope your refrigerator isn't at 32, maybe 33.
I said 32.
Ours is at 37.
I was thinking, if your refrigerator is
Hopefully 40.
knock it up a degree or two.
Yeah. It's funny though, because we've been doing so many reds that I just walked in the door like 30 seconds ago. I'm like getting it out of the fridge and opening it and setting up. But I was like, I had to Google, like, do you aerate white wine? Because I don't drink white wine. I was like, do I need to put my aerator on the bottle? Google was like, no, stupid.
There you go. Yep. Don't worry about aerating
Don't
wines.
aerate the white.
They don't need it. It's a different beast. But so anyway, so like I said, keep it up. A lot of them, you bring it out. It'll be, if it's in the 30s or in the 40s, it'll warm up to be around the 50, and you'll really get the most out of this wine. A great way to chill your white wine to the proper temperature is to, if you take it and it's been in your home in the pantry or something, put it in your refrigerator, 30 minutes in the refrigerator, and you are golden. So a 30-minute chill in the refrigerator, and you'll be just about perfect temperature.
For white, too?
For white.
Okay.
Yeah. So, 30 minutes to an hour. It could go an hour easily. So I'd say, I'm going to correct that. Go an hour in the fridge for a white. Okay. 20 to 30 minutes in the freezer. That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
But if you put your wine in the freezer, which is fine, it's okay to quick chill it in the freezer. Set a timer, because you don't want to forget it and have a wine slushy.
I mean,
There are
fridge is
worse
set to
slushies, though. I mean, it's not
32.
such a bad thing for a slushy. All right. So, I'm going to get started. And then, all right, so some of the great pairings that we put on the listing last week. This is great for kind of a lighter herbed chicken. So chicken tarragon, escargot, clam chowder, shellfish. Light white fishes are also great with Chablis. So, sure, grouper, flounder.
No, I almost knocked it over.
You could also have something just for halibut. Ching. Yes. Okay. So Chardonnay from this region in France is unoaked, and this one is completely unoaked. All stainless steel fermentation, no buttery oaky bomb here, which is what a lot of people think of when it comes to Chardonnay. But Chablis has always made it this way. Yeah, this is unoaked or incredibly neutrally oaked Chardonnays have always been their style. They believe in expressing the earth, their terroir, through their grapes without affecting it with the barrel. So on this guy, it's a very fresh style of wine. It's perfect for the summertime, in addition to having light foods. Because I mean, you could have this with a nice salad as well, as well as for a Petit Chablis, you could just drink it on the porch and just enjoy yourself. It's a nice pale. There's almost a little hue of green to the pale yellow on these guys. Yeah. And it's kind of a nice floral bouquet coming out of the glass there. I will say there's a bit of a honeysuckle quality on there onto that. And that honey, which some people would say, okay, well, that must mean there's some oak in here, and there really is not. In this case, that honey quality, that richer quality that you get in this wine, comes from in the aging process. They allow them to stay on their lees, and the lees are, as you're fermenting the wine, all mostly the yeast, as it finishes its work, will fall out of solution and settle to the bottom, and then it can kind of create a rich creaminess on its own to the wine that has nothing to do with oak. And an early kind of difficulty in wine tasting is differentiating between lees quality and oak, because they both create richness, but just in a different way. And one of the best ways that I found to train your palate to see the difference is drinking champagne. If you drink a sparkling wine made in the true traditional method, because they dose it with some additional yeast and it stays in there, you can taste that. They call it a brioche quality. It's kind of a bready quality that comes to it. That's that effect.
Like small.
So I'd say fruit-wise, we're talking about a really pretty balance of citrus and green apples. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I like that. It's so crisp without losing flavor.
Meanwhile, I'm like, this is the only.
It's definitely like it's not a Chardonnay that I've ever had. It's like it doesn't taste like Chardonnay.
This is a Chardonnay. I'm in love.
Exactly. Like,
yeah, Chablis, and that's
green apple.
all right. Yeah, Chablis. That's where I really wanted to feature them. Unoaked Chardonnay is the fastest growing segment of Chardonnay that I'm able to move at the store. I know for a fact that it's one of the fastest growing segments in Chardonnay. There's kind of a dichotomy right now where you have people that have been drinking Chardonnays for 30 to 50 years, and they really are used to that buttery, oaky California expression, which is fine. But it really didn't appeal to a lot of other people. Thought it was just too much. And people, so a lot of people are looking at unoaked Chardonnays as a new expression of Chardonnay. And then you have, Chablis France over there saying, excuse me, not new. We've been doing it the whole time. And they've been declaring it to be the right way the whole time. So there's a lot of minerality in here, which is very much a hallmark of, and we'll discuss why later on, of Chablis.
I was in the same minerality, but I was scared.
Don't be afraid. You're totally right. There's going to be a chalky quality and almost a little bit of, if you just let it finish off, you almost have like it's almost like a bit of salt dashed onto a lime.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of salinity, and there's a reason for that too, and we'll get into that as well.
Yeah.
So let's jump back to the slides if you wouldn't mind.
There we go.
All right, and let's go to the next slide. Okay, so here we are looking at all the wine growing areas of France, and we are in the Burgundy region. Burgundy is famous for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. It is, Burgundy technically includes Champagne. Champagne is a sub-region of Burgundy, but it's just so well known on its own that they gave it its own color here. But now, what we are talking about here, Chablis, is this region right here, just below Champagne, right in that cool, crisp area of Burgundy. And here's a closer look within Chablis. The Petit Chablis subregions within Chablis, that's what we're drinking. This is the yellow areas. So what we're drinking is a wine that is made up of over 30 different sites from these yellow areas in order for them to blend. Some of them are warmer, some are cooler, some are windier, some are sunnier. They take a little of each of those flavors and they bring it together for what we're tasting today. The region here, the subregion called Petit Chablis, was created in 1944. Chablis as a region
During the war.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. Well, interestingly, like Chablis was declared and defined in 1938.
Okay.
So at first there was no Petit Chablis, and then they asked to become part of it, and they proved that their soil was equal to all the others, and Petit Chablis became the newest, the youngest of the regions there. And part of it too was just simply people continuing to farm in areas they hadn't farmed before. Most of the Petit Chablis regions are further away from the town of Chablis, and I think it just took longer before people were out there. Chablis, as a region, is known for its hilliness. I mean, it's you know, the hills are alive with the taste of Chardonnay. You can sing that on your own.
See like the shadowing and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
And then, so with these hills, it really makes a difference. Like when you look up here and you can see, I don't know if you guys can see the texture of the map. So each of these areas is going to have subclimates, and that's where they get they get lots of their different flavors from this area. But they are one of their things, what they're famous for are the hills. And you can see the rolling hills here when you're down. Then this is so I talked about a bit of a taste of the minerality and a little bit of salinity. So their soil is chalk, and it's fossilized oyster shells for the most part. So you actually, I'm going to jump up real quick, like here. I mean, you can see it's way over here, and yet it was clearly underwater.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah, this is what we're tasting. This is what you can look at that. That's not a dark, rich-looking soil. That is it's a lean, chalky, minerally soil that just.
So I have a question based on something you said last week then.
Mm-hmm.
So are we getting that minerality taste because of the roots bringing nutrients through the soil, or is it because the yeast picking up the flavoring of what's around it?
Good question. Minerality comes from the roots pulling up from the soil. Yeah. So when you get to other areas, which we'll explore later, let's say in the near future, we'll drink a Cabernet Sauvignon from southeastern Australia. In that case, you're going to get a eucalyptus quality to it, and that comes because the yeast is jumping from all those eucalyptus trees onto the grapes.
But minerality is specific to the soil.
Yep.
Okay. The roots.
Right.
Yeah.
The La Chablisienne within Chablis, let me get back here, is La Chablisienne, we'll jump back to us, is a what's called a négociant winemaker, which is extremely common in France. A négociant buys the grapes that they then make wine with. And these guys purchased from over 300 different vineyards throughout Chablis. They've been making wine since 1923, so they're not newcomers. They are large, and they do buy from a lot of different people. But they've got, we're talking multi-generational relationships with these winemakers.
Absolutely, almost 100 years.
Right, and it's pretty amazing. So part of the reason that being a négociant is so common in France is that the winemaking, each vineyard tends to be really small, and it's more on the rare side that one family or one owner controls enough land anymore in France to have a large enough production to be able to make their own wine and have a decent amount to sell that they could actually make a living off of it. And that comes from kind of an interesting law. So there's the inheritance law. That's it. The inheritance law within France, when it comes to owning vineyards, is stated such that when someone dies, equal parts of that ownership are split up to every one of their children, no matter what they want. You have no say in it. And so if you had 5 kids, there are now 5 owners, plus maybe your wife is still around, 6 owners. And if those kids have kids, so there are a lot of these places where it was subdivided and subdivided and subdivided. And now you have some where they'll have some plots of land in some of the more expensive areas where it's nothing but 5 acres and they have 150 owners.
That was because of mistresses, right? Wasn't it because of the children weren't legitimate?
It had to do with that. It
Yeah.
also had to do with favorites and people
Okay.
currying favor with their parents at the end,
Mhm.
and it was all kinds of reasons. So they thought the most reasonable at the idea,
Mhm.
and it sounds reasonable. It's, oh, well, everyone gets equal, no more legal fights. This is just taking up too much time in the legal system. But then what they didn't realize was going to happen is they've made a lot of really wonderful growing areas completely ineffective, because if there are 150 owners, a lot of times there are no owners because no one wants to step up and take care of the property properly. It's an interesting thing. There are some people that have been wealthy enough now where they begin to negotiate and try to buy, but if you're negotiating 150 times just for 5 acres, it becomes exhausting. So it's become quite an interesting and difficult thing. So the answer for most French winemakers is becoming a negotiant. Simply buy the grapes, and then make it yourself. Let's see, in this case, the wine growers also press the grapes into vats that are owned by Chablisienne, and then Chablisienne comes and grabs them. So they want it pressed as quickly, as close to the vineyard as possible. Most of these are really tiny vineyards, so they literally pick them usually at night so that the sun won't continue to over-ripen them or change the juice. They'll pick them in the cool, bring them in there, and then crush them, and then have it, at that point, it's controlled, and it won't change, and then they'll come pick it up, and then they make their wine from it.
Is that typical? Like that you would crush it before moving rather than sending the grapes?
No, most of the
Okay.
time they send the grapes, and they'll do that at night too, and then they send it quickly. But modern technology is changing a lot of that now, where they can crush it and have it wait there, and they'll just put a little nitrogen on top and have everything basically in stasis, so that they can keep the it's called must at that point. Once you crush the grapes, that grape juice that's going to be wine is called must. Anyway, so the must is waiting for them to pick up, and then they bring it back to their facility.
Because I would think that would be a lot, as long as you trust the people crushing it to crush it the way you would crush it, then it seems like it would retain whatever you would want from the grape better than shipping it first and then crushing it. But if they're not doing it the way you would do it, then that's a different thing.
Yeah, you're right. A little more. Now that mine is warming up too, because it was a little chilled.
I need a little more.
This is a white wine that you're drinking.
I know, but it's not oaky, so I actually like it.
Some nice herbs coming out now. I'm thinking a little tarragon. I think is the reason they talk about tarragon with their chicken.
Yeah, I was going to say tarragon, but then I was like, nah, that was like put in my head like 10 minutes ago, and that's why it's like right there. I think it's also like something like melon or something like that, like kind of those like sweeter white fruits. Yeah.
No, I'm with you, Chris. I agree. I didn't get the melon at first, but now that my glass is warming up more, and I think we'll all see that evolution.
Robin said pears.
Pears, yeah, good call. And that's that cool growth Chardonnay. You'll even find this in California. The cool growth areas in California will create Chardonnay that has flavors of apple and pear. And the warmer growth Chardonnay, which is common in California, will give you the more tropical fruits, which is not good. It's not good or bad. It just is. And those. So if you have a Chardonnay that can taste more like star fruit and mango and a ripe pineapple, that is from warmer growth. The climate there in.
Can we hear it again?
Yeah.
Okay. Over there.
Thank you. The climate, where was I going? Here we go. So the climate here is in the north, and it is extremely cool. And actually, part of the reason Chablis was always kind of their production historically has been smaller than in, say, Bordeaux or the Rhone, because they were not able to get as many grapes to grow and ripen properly because it has been so chilly. However,
Climate change.
climate change has been happening. So they've been having incredible crops. So where you have, and we will discuss this next week, which you'll see there's a little hint. We'll discuss the problems of Bordeaux next week, but Burgundy and especially Chablis is actually benefiting right now, and they're doing quite well. Their crops are bigger and easier to come to ripeness. Not over ripening yet, which may become a problem in the future, but as of right now, it's actually working out quite well for them. All right, and let's jump back down. And so we talked about scores, so I always like to go there, but actually I want to finish up. Let's stop sharing, talking a little bit more about the wine. Anything else anyone else has come up with while you're sipping on it? Before we move on to some general wine discussion, we'll talk about this beauty in front of us.
I did get a little bit of apple. Like, it kind of reminded me of a cider the first sip but now that it's warming up, I kind of lost it. But yeah, I got some apple in it. I like crisp.
Yeah, I agree. Cold, I think the presentation was kind of like lime rind with green apple. And as it warms up, it's now more of kind of like a lemon twist on honeydew melon with maybe a little tarragon. And it still has a little bit of a saline finish to me, a little bit of salinity, which would make it so good with oysters or shrimp, you know, any kind of a, you know, like a seafood boil, would be outstanding.
So I have to want to say the guy or maybe your guy's right, is our friend Blast. So this was actually one of Myra's clients, and I walked in, had the bottle of wine and everything, and it was like setting up, and he's like, "What are you doing?" So I told him about the Tipple's wine tasting. So he hasn't really been in a Tipple, so it's like he decided to join us. So it's catching on.
Join us.
You're welcome.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here.
What's your name again? I didn't hear the name.
It's Blast, B as in boy, L-A-S, Blast Brown.
Blast.
All right, Blast.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you.
So
Sorry.
but during the tasting, he was just commenting on how like no other places are doing anything like this. So it's like,
Yeah, I think this is a great idea. It's a good way to keep everyone engaged during these times, and at the same time, you know, you're educating us on all the great wines out there. So I think it's a very, very good idea.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's actually something that we're going to continue doing even after we're all back to normal, whatever that is.
Right.
Because it's nice to be able to have a tasting at home sometimes. I mean, of course,
Yeah.
we can in the store too, but it's nice to
that's
just
what I was telling him. Yeah.
have a glass of wine at home and get a little bit.
Okay, so here, do me a favor.
So
So, yeah.
thank you so much. We're going to continue it even after
Oh, absolutely.
we're back to normal.
Yeah, and I love the enthusiasm, and I
We
just
have
have
newcomers.
That's right. I love getting new people.
Right. And I haven't seen Marie Brown here before.
Yeah, welcome, Brown.
Welcome.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Oh, unmuted.
Thanks for coming.
We are unmuted.
Oh. This is our first time.
Yeah.
I'm Marie Brown.
And I'm Rosalind Brown. And we're just trying it out.
So the Browns have joined you.
Yeah, we're here.
3 of us.
Well, thank you so much for coming. I hope you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go on to.
I'm sorry, what's the last thing you said?
I said we appreciate this opportunity.
Oh, great. Well, awesome. That's,
Yeah.
no, it's an opportunity for me to learn too, because Jeff is the wine and beer expert. I teach algebra, so I have to come here and learn about wine and beer. Normally, I just drink what he puts in my hand, and he knows what I like, so I normally trust him with that. I mean, I always trust you with it, but usually you're spot on, so, yeah.
It's a good thing.
Actually, what's kind of fun is when I make this presentation, I don't know if you guys know this, she never knows it ahead of time.
No,
Like, she does not know the presentation.
no.
Sharing it with
No,
everybody.
these are legitimate questions. These are not, these are actually my questions, so, yeah.
All right, let's jump back to the screen. I added a new screen, one that I think I'm going to use every week.
Okay.
So those of you that have been with us before know that I like to go through the explanation of wine scores. I just think it's important for people to know so here we have it again. Like I say, when we're talking about a 90+ point wine, we're talking about outstanding wines. And a lot of people come in and they say, oh, well, they expect the minimum that they would drink would be 90. And look, sometimes you just want a casual bottle of wine, which is fine.
Mhm.
And you may want a $12 to $15 bottle of wine on that, on that Tuesday or something. That's what might be called for, which is, there's lots of good wine out there in that price point. But that wine may be an 87 pointer. That does not mean it's a bad wine. That wine may be an 85 pointer. It's a very good wine. So that's why I put this up again. And every time I get new people, I want to introduce them to it. I have these cards in the store as well. For people to reference. And but like if you were to get all the way down to an 80-point wine, it's still a good, solid, well-made wine. There's nothing wrong with that. Oh, and I found my old slide to show there is an argument to be made because humans make these ratings, and humans can be affected by having a bad day or a good day or what they're surrounded by when they're drinking it. So just because there is a rating on a wine doesn't not necessarily mean it is the wine for you, and it doesn't mean it's not the wine for you if it doesn't have a rating. So this has been my favorite example. This is one I came up with, 2 or 3 weeks ago. So the Wapisa, this is a Pinot Noir from one of my favorite areas that grows Pinot Noir. It's from Patagonia within Argentina. We'll drink one of those at some point this year. And but we have a James Suckling rating of 94 points. So if you saw that, you think, wow, this is going to be an exceptionally good Pinot Noir. Fresh, clean Pinot with fresh strawberries, hints of flowers, medium-bodied, vivid, beautiful finish, shows focus and finesse. Great potential for a first wine that he's had from that winery, 94 points. And then you have Wine Enthusiast reviewing the exact same wine from the exact same vintage. And here they have 83 points instead of 94. And the candied floral aromas are only lightly suggestive of what Pinot Noir normally even smells like. A chunky palate is aimless and obtuse, while raspberry and plum flavors are thin and taste oddly of chicken fat and cherry Kool-Aid.
Wow.
The same wine.
Yeah, not holding back on that one. And then the other thing too on that, which shows like with his description there, he should not have given that 83 points.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, he should have been way down in the low 70s or in the 60s on that. So take points for what they are. Sometimes you can find your favorite people and see if you agree with them more often than not. But it's nice that they kind of give you a direction to go in if you're really lost. But the bottom line is getting to know a wine or knowing people that you can say, hey, look, this is what I'm in the mood for. I drink a lot of wines and almost none of them have ratings at all. But I can tell you what they do.
And that's why you taste them, so that you know whether to recommend them or not in the store,
Right.
and whether to bring them into the store too.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's funny because even the 94-point guy, James Suckling, I feel like 94 is higher than a lot of what even we've had here, and we've had amazing wines.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's
94. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
you're right. Yeah,
And
you're exactly right. I mean, 94 is at the top of outstanding and going toward a classically great wine.
Yeah, and it says great first try, shows great potential. I'm like, great potential, there's not a whole lot to move up from a 94.
Yeah.
So the wording doesn't even really match the rating well.
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
So it's yeah.
that's a good point, Julie. And then the other thing is there's another argument, which is saying that it's a disservice to the overall wine customers with some of these big points, because what'll happen is if nobody pays attention to the Wine Enthusiast one and that James Suckling 94 points takes off and the Wapisa becomes incredibly popular, they'll raise their prices for the next vintage. So then it's a disservice to the customer too, because now the customer has to pay more for the wine simply because somebody gave it a 94.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you carry that one? Now I feel like we should have a tasting totally based around this.
You haven't tasted it yet.
I have not. No, it's available to me. But once I saw both of them, I thought, I don't know where I'm going to go on this, and until I taste it, I won't.
Right, we won't bring it in as a product until
Please don't make us drink things that taste like chicken fat, but I have a feeling it's probably somewhere in between the two.
I mean, I have to admit, I'm very intrigued by this chicken fat. I think you should get it.
Well, the other kind of crazy thing about the rating too is that you can kind of, if you read what they're saying, there's you can see there's a little bit of an overlap. It's almost like it's like the whereas candied floral aromas. I'm like, okay, and you go up there and you're like flower, strawberries, and you're like, okay, that's they're kind of almost on the same page, but maybe it's way too much for one of them, or they really hate it or something like that. But like, you kind of look at the both and you're like, that sort of sounds like it's probably the same wine, but one person just really hates it.
Right.
I think what the wine enthusiast guy drank like 6 bottles of wine before he did the scoring.
Stopped off at KFC earlier, and I was just like, I don't know, it's like chicken fat.
Or
That
maybe,
was all messed up.
Or his ex-wife makes this wine, and he's like, no.
Marie, were you gonna say something? I feel like you got cut off at one point.
Oh, it's all right. I was just wondering about this cherry Kool-Aid. The chicken fat sounds kind of rough, but the cherry Kool-Aid isn't much better.
Add some acid to that, you never know.
It doesn't even seem like a proper,
Description.
comment on the wine to be chicken fat and Kool-Aid. It just doesn't seem right. Now I almost want to try it and see if it tastes like chicken fat.
Yeah, Jeff, I think you did it. Now we have to taste it.
okay. All right. Well, maybe I'll reach out to the rep. She'll be thrilled.
Just get like 10, 15 bottles for just this group, and then
Right. We'll just do a special sub tasting. It's like, what does what he said taste like?
yeah.
Like for real?
Talk to Dave's Deli. See if we can get like a chicken fat and then a Kool-Aid packet next to it.
Well, the crappy thing is if it does taste like chicken fat, we'll be like, yep, tastes like chicken fat. Then we're stuck with a bottle of wine.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
We don't know what Michael Schackner knew what he was talking about.
Right. I'll just be like, you guys asked for it.
Right? No, if it tastes like chicken fat, please do not pick it, because I don't want to have to drink it for a tasting. I'll be like, okay, I have something else I have to do.
Right. I mean,
Let it be
there
known
is wine.
that Nathan Cups did not ask for this. So just,
Listen, guys,
I'm with you. Here's my new map, which I thought, I don't know, I think this is just really fun to look at. When you look at so these darker areas indicate the premier wine growing latitudes in the world. So anywhere along here is good for growing wine grapes. It's a combination of the proper amount of sunlight, cooler temperatures. I mean, even if they do get hot, they cool off maybe at night, and they have the ability to keep enough mildew and moisture at bay.
Yeah, I mean, that's cool, but Georgia and Alabama are part of this map, and so is
Right.
Mississippi. It's kind of bizarre because I would think they're so humid. There's no way. Although I know that I drive by a Georgian winery when I go to Auburn, so.
And part of it's going to be because, like, you have over here, so all of Spain is right
Right.
here with all that, but Spain is much more arid, so they can actually grow there.
Okay.
Georgia, not so much.
Yeah,
So that's
maybe
not
we
gonna
need to
happen,
wait
but-
a little bit, not stay latitude
Right.
for the same, but. yeah.
But at the same time, they're starting to grow some really good stuff in Virginia.
Hmm.
So it's I don't know, it's kind of interesting to see where some of the, so here we are in upward France, we're in the northern part of France, right around here. I put you way over there in Maine, and to me, it's always surprising to see how far north Europe really is.
Oh, absolutely.
Does Canada do wine? Like, I feel like there's a significant chunk of Canada in there.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, and actually Canada does, and the Finger Lakes region here. This is actually quite good wine growing for German varietals. So they're doing a lot of Riesling, Gewürztraminer, Grüne Veltliner, that kind of a thing here. And it's becoming popular enough that I'm beginning to see enough of them that they may find a place in the store. Right now, my one thing is this. They're not cheap. So when somebody says, why would I skip Germany to go to New York State and then pay $35 instead of $17 a bottle? That is to me, that's not going to make sense.
Well, that's crazy too, because you're importing from Germany all the way, across the ocean, and yet New York is right here in the Eastern time zone and everything.
I-
You just drive it out.
I think it's a small production. They're all small family production, which is really neat. I mean, I love being able to focus on that.
Right.
But it's a lot easier to talk to somebody about a more expensive family produced Cabernet Sauvignon than a Riesling. 'Cause-
Mhm.
Yeah, They've also done we had some ice wine up there too. That was another
Oh, right.
thing they were into. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Justin. Good call. Yeah, a lot of ice wines. So they're developing. They're starting to make more Cab Franc up there, which I don't quite get that. But I've got to learn a little more, learn a little bit more about Cab Franc for why that would be the case. But anyway, I thought this was kind of fun to look at. I mean, like Australia, great wine growing region here and here. This is where that eucalyptus cab would be coming from. And then, of course, last week, right?
New Zealand,
New
yeah.
That was
I think
actually
2 weeks ago.
Did we do the Rioja last week?
Yeah.
It's all running together.
The New Zealand one was like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, yeah.
All right, so New Zealand, there we go. And actually, you can kind of see the separation. So we were drinking from here, and then we were drinking from here. Now we're drinking from here. That was a little shorter. Next week, we're just going to there.
We're still in France next week.
We are. So I will reveal. Ta-da! Okay. So we're going to Bordeaux, homeland of the red blend and most of the varietals that almost all Americans prefer. Birthplace of Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, red blends. Actually, they're all about red blends. They don't do single varietal. So this is
The entire region? Or
Bordeaux does not traditionally. They don't traditionally make anything but red blends.
Oh.
They, I'm going to tell you, well, we're probably going to do it more next week. But yeah, they thought Americans were insane for beginning to make single varietal. Anyway, so Cru Bourgeois within Bordeaux. This guy, once again, gets some decent points for whatever that's worth, but it is worth something here. That it's delicious. This is right in the comfort zone of it's Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, but also we'll get to be introduced to the French expression of those grapes rather than the Californian expression most people are used to. Great pairings for this: leaner cuts of beef, savory pork or duck, smoked meats are fantastic with theirs, roast vegetables and mushrooms. So this winery is kind of interesting because where it's from breaks several traditional rules within the very strict winemaking of France in general and Bordeaux specifically. So there are a couple of there things are changing within Bordeaux, and this is a great example of A, that they're changing, and B, when you're in those areas that are changing, you can get incredible deals with delicious wines out of Bordeaux without having to spend some of the money. I mean, after all, some of the most expensive wines in the world are all from Bordeaux and from Burgundy when it comes to that matter. So I think we're going to have some fun. It's delicious, and I look forward to tasting with all of you guys.
And we see that the ratings, for whatever they're worth, are much closer together on this.
Right. This guy is what most ratings are within a few points of each other. So you've got, like I said, and I like when you can see them kind of clustered like that because, and you know, you look at that and you're like, that's a really solid bet. Even if you didn't have me telling you, that's going to be a tasty wine. All right.
Okay, so we'll stop
Jump
the
back.
share. And does anyone else have any more comments about the Petit Chablis this evening?
The Venetian blinds at the Bubbles and Kiwi House.
Yeah.
Hit the wrong camera view.
We're not drinking Italian. I don't see Venetian. All right. Thank you all very much for coming.
And
Quite good.
Cheers, everybody. Bring us
Okay, see you later. Bye-bye.
I got rid of my glass. I drank it all.
All right.